Howdy, howdy, and welcome to My Bloody Judy with your final forgets, myself, Zachary Patton Garcia.
And Ian Carlos Crawford.
Hey guys, we're back on video. We decided to do video again, so we got the hat back and everything. It's
We
here.
got the hat back. That's the
It's
important
my
part.
hairdo. Any hat I wear is a hairdo. And we've got Ian. He is moved out of the basement and then back into his bedroom, so he does not have to set up. Let me tell y'all, it was like an hour long setup every time we used to do those episodes on video.
Yeah, it was a fucking nightmare.
Yeah. So we are here. We're ready to have a wonderful time, and we are going to be covering. What are we covering, Ian?
We're talking about the movie St. Jude. Oh my God.
Oh my gosh, Saint
You want to
Maud.
redo that?
Yeah, no, we're good. We're gonna really leave that in there.
Damn it. Today we're talking about the movie St. Maud.
Yeah, this is a movie written and directed by Rose Glass. It stars, I'm going to butcher this name, Morfydd Clark as Maud and Jennifer Ely as Amanda. Jennifer Ely was in Pride and Prejudice, I think. So these are our two notable stars. There's a bunch of other characters in here, but these are the two that we're going to focus on for the movie. I don't know, overall impressions, what'd you think, Ian?
Um, I didn't dislike it. I didn't love it. I felt very like medium about it.
Okay. I think I'm a little bit more than medium on it. I really liked it. I did really, really like it, and I think it's a great effort by Rose Glass. And the performances in it are stellar. I think this is one of those movies that really makes you remember that horror just gives some of the best performances out there and never gets the recognition for it, right? So yeah, really liked it, but I didn't like absolutely love it like I do most A24 films. And to be fair, I don't think this is technically an A24 film, it's just distributed by A24. But we're gonna get into it. It's a good one. It's it's heavy on the religious aspect. I mean, it's called Saint Maud. Maud in the movie is this devout Roman Catholic who starts to believe that she is sent to save somebody's soul.
I actually meant to look up
Yeah.
because at one point I was like, oh, she's like the Vision in Da Vinci Code, what that religion that he is. Does she like hurts herself? That's like a specific thing. I don't
I
know what it is. I don't. I don't know. I don't do religion.
there's moments in here, and we can kind of when we get to them, we'll talk about them a little bit. But a lot with that religion, especially in the olden days, they would hurt themselves to sort of appease God or punish themselves, and so we definitely have some of that in here. This movie is not. It does not seem to look favorably on religion. So I know that some people are triggered by talk of religion or like anything blasphemous or anything that's not exactly showing religion in a positive light. So here's your trigger warning. I know this because I started to come out of the Catholic religion about 10 years ago, maybe a little bit more, and this movie, just watching it would have set like all of my religious ticks off. I would have been crossing myself throughout the whole movie. I'd been clutching my pearls, my rosary. I'd been like, it would have just created a mess for me mentally. And I think it creates a mess mentally for Maud in the movie. And I think it's such a great exploration of like what these kinds of religions will do to somebody if followed to the extremes that Maud is following them.
Okay, wait. Counterpoint.
Okay.
I think it's just that Maud is like someone who needs to be like in a hospital getting help. I don't think it's like really her religion. I think it's just like she is because I don't like she sees herself as a literal saint. I mean, we get that imagery. So I think it's I think it's her. I think everything is in her head and she is as yes, as some religious people do, she's making allowances for the bad things she's doing by calling it religion. Which I mean, one could argue that is religion, but I kind of think it's mostly in her head because I mean, like clearly she's not really hearing God; she's going nuts. I don't know. That's kind
She's
of how
having a
I.
mental break, and she is somebody who should probably be in a hospital receiving help. Completely agree with that. And it's the religion. I don't want to say that that is caused by the religion because that was already there, and we learned in the movie that that was already sort of there. And it's the religious aspect. Her looking, she's a lost person, kind of looking for something, and when she thinks she finds something, that her being a devout Catholic does not help her at all in this movie. I think we
Right.
just need to get into it because I think it's easier to understand as we go through it and kind of like start to unpack Maud and this character. Opening scene, we have this body lying on a hospital bed. It's this dead woman, she's covered in blood, and then we see Maud in the corner, also bloody.
Yeah, which we kind of go back to, but not really. I do wish there was a little bit more of like, because I kept wondering as the movie went on, ooh, did like she do something with her religious stuff to kill that person, or was it like this person died of, like kind of natural causes or whatever, and that kind of triggered like that was the trauma, and then her diving deep into religion was like her way of coping. I was
Mhm.
like, I kept wondering the balance there. Not that we really needed it, but I would have liked a little bit of like a figuring that out.
Yeah, I think when I first watched it, what I kind of took it as was that this is the point we were going to end up at. I thought this was something
Yeah.
from the future, and that we were going to lead up to that. But it turns out this is going to be a flashback. And we go from that scene to Maud getting ready to begin working at a new nursing position, and she's praying to God, and she's asking for she's asking that he takes care of her as she embarks on this new position and this new job, and then she heads off. And I just never thought of it like this. That nurses in these sorts of positions would have their own little apartment, and then they would just pack a bag and go for like how long was she like gonna be there? Because she like packs a bag, like leaves her apartment, and then like walks across town and like walks up this big hill to like this big mansion of the charge that she's supposed to be taking care of.
Yeah, yeah, I was wondering that too, because I guess I never really, because she doesn't, no, she is there 24/7, right?
Hmm.
Yeah, she doesn't go back to her place till like she's fired. um yeah, I think I wanted to point out though, when she's staring at the ceiling, the captions, because I watch everything with captions, just said like blood continues dripping. And I thought that was a good caption. And when they put it like turned to the soup, the tomato soup or whatever it was, I turned over to look at you, and both of us, because we watched movies over Zoom together, both of us were like bright red. It looked like we had like red lights shining on us, which I thought was cool. Um,
Yeah.
but yeah, and I also was confused about the setting at the top of the movie, because she's on the boardwalk and she walks by that sign that we see her walk by a bunch of times that says Coney Island. And I was like, oh, this is in New York. It's in Coney Island. And then I was like, that's weird. Everyone has an accent. Oh, this is not in Coney Island.
No, it is not in Coney Island, and I even had to double check that because on my second watch, I've watched this twice now. On my second watch, I saw that and I was like, but in like on the Wikipedia page, it says unnamed English seaside town. So just I don't know. Maybe they got some little establishment named Coney Island. But I mean, also it is kind of confusing because this woman that Maud is going to take care of is also an American. It's this terminally ill woman named Amanda, and Amanda is an American like former dancer and choreographer, and she's confined to a wheelchair and pretty much needs her caretaker to do most tasks for her, and that's what Maud is there to do. Also, Amanda's an atheist. Jennifer Ely is playing Amanda, and oh gosh, I have to say this is my favorite performance of the movie. I really liked the woman who plays Maud, but like I love a side character who just steals the show, and she has so much depth to her character that it's just I would have watched a whole movie about Amanda.
See, yeah, so, but I want to point out, I do like when Maud walks into that house, because also I like that it's poised as like this like spooky house. Like she has to walk up that staircase, looks gigantic. Um, and she's like, I guess the other nurse is done taking care of her. I kind of thought it was like, oh, she'll be the day nurse and that nurse is the night nurse, or vice versa, but it's just that nurse is done. And she asked that nurse what she like, and she says, bit of a cunt, really. And I thought that was like a really good line. And I like that she like kind of isn't. Like she's a little shitty, but not like, I don't know, right?
I because when she says that, when the leaving nurse says that she's a bit of a cunt, I pictured this older woman who is like an old English lady who's just gonna
Yeah.
be like giving Maud shit at every turn, and she doesn't. She's like actually really personable and like has this like vivacious personality even through her illness, and I don't know. I don't think bit of a cunt was really, the perfect descriptor for that. I wonder why the other nurse was leaving though, because I mean, what we're meant to assume is that Maud's going to be here until like this woman dies, because this woman's dying. So I wonder why the other one was leaving, but whatever.
Well, and
I
like I wonder if the thing I think I assumed, which was incorrect, was that like the nurse, whatever the like company is, that like outsources these nurses, was like religious. But that's not the case. I mean, or at least from what we saw, it really was. It was just like she is religious, not.
and I think the previous company that she worked for was religious, I think, because they called it like Saint something of something, and this one's not called that. I think this is just like private care or something like that. They say it a few times in the movie. And then, speaking of this mansion, though, like this big mansion, this like, and it's got this like looming, it's almost a character in and of itself in the movie because we see it throughout and we see her looking up at it on top of
Yeah.
this big hill. I almost thought this was like it. I knew this was a psychological horror movie, but I almost thought that maybe they were going to take like some sort of possession route here, like where somebody gets possessed in this big mansion or something like that. I don't know. I thought we were kind of headed there, but
I did think,
quickly
well, I
realized
kind
not.
of thought that Maud was kind of going to be like the final girl, and the old lady she was taking care of was going to be like, as I mean, granted, that's kind of sort of where the movie goes, but not really. We know that's not like real. But I thought it was going to be like, especially when the other nurse was like, oh, she's a cunt. I thought it was going to be, this is our villain. She is like demonic in some way, and Maud has to like fight her.
Yeah. Yeah, and so Maud is here to just take care of Amanda in her final days. Maud bathes her, she cooks for her, she helps her like do her stretches in the morning, and there's a moment while they're stretching. There's a lot of sexual tension in there. There's a lot of lesbian tension. I thought, I don't know, I expected that to kind of go somewhere. Amanda is, if she's not a lesbian, she's very sexually fluid, I guess. But I mean, she's definitely there's this moment between them where it's that I feel like it's in all of those like cheesy like rom coms or something like that where two people are doing yoga together and they're stretching each other and they're like I don't even know what the pose would be, like they're stretching their like knee up to their chest and the other person's it's very very sexual position. And Amanda notices Maud's necklace, and it's a little pendant of the Virgin. It's Virgin Mary. Was that
Mary
it?
Magdalene.
Mary Magdalene. That's right. And she looks at it. And she said, "I didn't know they made figures or they made pendants of Mary Magdalene." Maud's a little cheeky here. She's like, "I got it online." She gives this like a little smile, and it's a little bit of personality, and I liked that.
Well, yeah, because what she does is it's like hanging out, and Amanda goes, "Oh, hello," and just kind of like flicks it,
Yeah.
and I thought that was like immediately very charming.
They
Like,
were very good together, and they did have like they had chemistry together. Maybe not as like romantic partners, but like even I guess kudos to the actresses for this because I mean they did have. I liked their little friendship.
so I did like their friendship, but I kind of think Amanda was really carrying all the weight there. I don't think. Now, I don't know if it's that she wasn't given a lot to do, but I did not find the actress who played Maud that charming or good.
Yeah, I don't find her charming. I found her as this. You would have this would be the dynamic here is right is you have the lively one and then you have the one who's kind of like the shrinking violet over in the corner, and the lively one is going to bring her out of her shell, and that's kind of the dynamic they sort of have here. But then you get these little moments from Maud where she'll smile and she's like not always so serious, but then she also doesn't pick up on these little moments of like sarcasm coming from Amanda, or
Right.
and you just feel bad for her. It's a very like all of her moments are very cringy to watch because she is this. I don't know. I guess she would be the weird kid. Is that mean to say?
No. I mean, she I felt like she would be the person that I end up being friends with in high school, or
Hmm.
like something like that. Like I would feel bad for this person and be like, "Oh, come be our friend," and then they'd be a religious nut that murders me. But um,
There's.
so then like I that was the first scene. Like prior to this, I was like, "Oh, is this movie going to be like totally flat?" Because sometimes for like building a vibe, they'll make it a little flat. But I appreciated that it was like, "Oh no, we're gonna like Amanda. She's not just like a dickhead." And I really like that. Then she sends Maud out because she has her friend over who I
Mhm.
thought, which is funny because I thought I was like, oh, that's her gay friend, and they're
That's what I
like
thought.
this like cute gay guy straight girl like pairing. But then she mentions that he's tried to fuck her all the time, and she's actually the queer one. Um,
Yeah.
I don't know. I liked I kind of I would have liked a little bit more Amanda. I felt like she. I agree with you that she had such a good performance, but I felt like we were so stuck on Maud's point of view that we didn't get enough. Like I wanted more of Amanda, and that's a credit to like the movie and her acting. Um, but I felt like she was so dynamic, we could have used a little bit more of her.
See, I don't think we could have used any more. I wanted more. That was a definite want from me. I thought it was, like I said, I could have watched a whole movie about her, but I think the fact that we have like an hour and a half runtime and it is all Maud's perspective, and I think going outside of that and maybe showing from somebody else's perspective would have changed the entire point of the movie here. And I think we even talked about this that the movie almost sometimes felt like it didn't know what point it was trying to make,
Yeah,
but I did see where they were trying to make some sort of point, and through showing a movie through the lens of entirely from Maud, it was where they were going, and I think to go outside of that would have messed that vision up. But I guess so. Like you said, Amanda sends Maud out. She has this. I definitely thought this was a gay guy too. I thought it was. I thought they were gonna have like a nice like gay and fag hag time.
right.
And really, it just seems like Amanda keeps bringing these people around because she's kind of reckoning. Because it seems like this guy is from her past. Because he even remarks that she used to be able to handle her liquor better.
Yeah,
And it seems like Amanda's just kind of this woman who knows she's dying. She's in despair, and like she's just kind of trying to reckon pieces of her past, and that's why she's like bringing this guy in. But Maud goes out to, I don't know. She tells the guy she's going to meet some friends. And we have this whole like inner narration from Maud saying that she would have been just fine staying in her room. That she thinks that Amanda was probably just embarrassed to have her there. And we get this moment where Maud really just goes out and she goes and has a coffee by herself and she just walks around by herself and it paints her as just this really lonely girl. She doesn't have any friends. She doesn't have any other social interactions. She's always talking to God in her head, and it seems like God is the only social interaction that she's even allowing herself to have, any meaningful relationship that she'll allow herself to have. And it's really heartbreaking to see.
yeah, and we kind of see that the town is a dump, right? Like it's a very like horror movie thing. It's like some dude is like putting in his eye at the restaurant at the table next to them. Like there's just like, and they make it look like a gross dump town, right?
Well, we're having internet difficulties. Okay, are we there? Are you here?
I can
Can you hear
hear
me?
you, but your video is completely frozen.
Okay. Shit. Okay. Well, we're gonna have to keep
Wait, you're
going.
slowly coming back, I think.
We'll just see. Technology. We try to do something nice. We try to have a nice little video component. Shit like this happens. Or is it because we're talking about God? Is this what's happening? We're being punished. Maud even says, and like, she even thinks to herself while she's at the dinner table that, she can't believe a woman like Amanda would even be in that town. So it is just one of those towns that people probably are born in and never leave. But she gets a call from Amanda's friend to come back home, and she goes back. Amanda has gotten very drunk, and it seems like she did not have a very good time with her friend. Her friend leaves. Just I don't know, this kind of sour mood. Maud starts to put Amanda to bed, and they have this moment where Amanda starts to just really express the fear that she has, that she knows she's dying, but she doesn't know what's beyond death. and like she's worried it's just going to be nothing, that her life was just meaningless, and like all of this was just nothing. And I think a lot of us have that sort of inner fear. I don't know. I mean, how much do you think about life after death? I know you don't really believe in anything after death, but like, does it ever? I don't know. Does it ever hit you?
No.
No, that's just it, I guess. I don't
The only
know,
time
but
it
then
hits me is if like other people die, and
yeah.
I'm like, like I
Well,
don't
then with
think like
something
I
like
love a like sure like an image like when people die and people say to me, well, now they're meeting blah 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 in the afterlife. I'm like, please fuck off. I do not want to hear that. That does not make me feel better because I don't believe in any of this. Like they're asleep, their eyes are closed, they're in the ground. Um, I don't know. I mean, maybe when I'm like in a few years when I'm 80 and dying, maybe I'll think about that. But I don't know.
but then how do you sort of go? I don't know. Like, how do you sort that? See, I've never understood people who don't believe in anything after. I mean, it doesn't mean you have to believe in God or like anything specific, but I've just never understood like not believing in anything, because then what is living, you know? Are we just here to just live and die, and then that's all? And that just I don't know, that's that's a really sad thing to think about. I don't know. I
I don't
definitely
know.
think
Not
there's
everyone. I
something
don't. I don't.
after.
For me,
Yeah.
it's like living forever, right? It's like ooh this, and then you pass on to another thing where you live another life and you're alive forever, and like I don't know, man.
Deep conversations. And so while they're having this kind of talk, Maud, this is like the perfect time for Maud to come in there, and she's like, there is a God, there is an afterlife, and God has you. If you want him, he's there.
Well, she starts off being sweet, but then she says like, but then she's like whispering it in her ear, and also says he won't let her go. And I, because in my notes I put she said he won't let her go, which like I don't know what the fuck that means, and that would creep me out if I were this older lady. I'd be like, all right, can we get a different nurse here? Um, because like that's not. I mean, but we know this later on in the movie. Maud isn't your typical religious person because that's not like something I feel like that's not something you say to someone who's dying. Like he's not going to let you go. Like he's got you, which right?
Yeah, I think for the particular scene of presenting this sort of closeness that is there between them, I think maybe the whispering in the ear was kind of adding to that. I would never do that. I would never go into anybody's ear and start whispering anything. I think that's a little bit too much. But Maud is also like I don't think she just doesn't pick up on cues like that. She doesn't do that. But I mean, like Amanda welcomes it too. I think this is a moment where Amanda really just. And we learn later that, I mean, she doesn't believe any of this shit anyway. She's never going to believe any of this shit. But like, it's a moment where she just, craves that sort of connection, and she has it, and she calls Maud her little savior, and Maud thinks that she's really comforted this woman, and then Maud leaves Amanda to go to sleep, and as Maud is going upstairs to her room, she has so the director calls this a godgasm. Every time that Maud, because Amanda asks, do you, when you talk to God, do you hear him? And she says, yes, and I feel him. And it's like this pulsing, this vibrating. And then we see as she's going up the stairs, she has one of these, like, and it looks like she's having an orgasm. And so the director, Rose Glass, calls it a godgasm. And every time Maud feels the presence of God there with her, she has one of these godgasms. And it's intense.
Yeah.
You have nothing to add on that.
I I think that is so stupid. Like the context of the director makes me think it's more stupid than I thought it was.
Yeah, I don't
Um,
know.
because I I don't know. I was wondering. I was like, where is this going? Um, and that's when I kind of was like, oh, is the turn going to be that Maud is the evil? I mean that is the turn, right? But I was like, oh, is like I kind of thought we were going towards like Maud is slightly possessed, is what I thought it was going to be. Um, but I mean, I don't think that's. I think it's just that she's unhinged. Um, and I kind of this is when I was like, oh, okay, like maybe she's is already possessed and it's there, and that's the thing that we saw at the top. I mean, I think I thought the same thing you did, where I thought that's where we were leading. But I was like, oh, is that what we saw in the beginning of the movie? Like she was possessed, that's why she saw the cockroach and there was blood everywhere. Um, and that's kind of where I thought this scene, like I thought that's what the scene was like a hinting at, like, ooh, look, there's a demon there somewhere, and that's it, like kind of coming out.
Yeah, I don't know. I think this more relates to. I think it's an exaggerated version of when people go to church. A lot of people feel the presence of the Holy Spirit, and they'll put their hands up and they'll close their eyes, and like this, and there's some churches that people even get a little bit more animated and a little bit more lively over this sort of thing. And I think this was more of an exaggerated version of that. But Maud is now convinced that God has given her a very specific job, a very important purpose in life, and that is to save Amanda's soul.
Right, like Amanda really shit the bed by calling her savior.
Yeah, I think Amanda has to she gets some joy out of this, out of like kind of leading Maud along, because we do find out later that she was just leading her along, because not only does she, like a little bit later as they're about to eat a meal, she'll pray with her. She feels this presence of God with her. She also gives her a book by William Blake of like a bunch of this really spiritual artwork, and it's inscribed, to Maud, my savior, from Amanda. And while we can sort of take it as some sort of sarcasm or some sort of mockery, and likely believe that that is what it is, Maud is not there in her head, and she's not going to take it that way. And so she sees this as like Amanda accepting God into her life.
Well, I do, yes, I think that's how Maud sees it, but I don't think it's Amanda mocking her. I think it's the same way if I had like a religious friend who was maybe being really nice to me when I'm ready to die. It's like, okay, like while I hate religion, I respect that people, love God and stuff. So like, sure, like I might like have a cute nickname that relates to their religion because I know that the person would like it. It doesn't mean I'm
Yeah.
mocking them. Like for me, it's like, okay, cool. This is what they like. This is a nice relationship. I don't see a lot of people, but this is the person I see 24/7. And I think she's just trying to be like, oh, look, we can like, sure, I'll go along with your religious stuff because like we're friends, we're cool. I think she uses the word savior exactly to be like, I think she's happy to have Maud there. So I think she uses that word because she knows Maud will like it. Um,
Yeah.
you know, a prime example of earlier when I text Zach to be like, well, I'm showering and you better tell me I look nice before we record. And Zach said, you look very nice when I came on. It's just, you're like, Ian's my friend. I'll tell
Yeah.
him something nice because he wanted to hear it.
And that's kind
I think
of
of it like
what,
that.
yeah, that is kind of what I thought at first. But then, like, on the rewatches, when I started to think it was more of like, and I don't think she was being mean at all. I don't think she was being mean at all. But I do think she was being very tongue in cheek about all this stuff, and very like, I don't know, just very cheeky about everything. Even when she writes "my savior," it has these little angel wings around him, almost like sarcastic quotation marks. So I don't think she's being mean here, but I think she knows what she's doing. She's too smart for that. But there is a line in this book, in this William Blake book, that I think is just such a great line too, and it's talking about Blake's aversion to organized religion, and that really resonated with me. It said, "Let me see, religion is an ugly distortion of a true spiritual life," and I think that is so perfect. Even if you are not believing in anything within the Christian faith, or like Judaism or Islam, anything like that. Anybody can be spiritual in a bunch of different ways. You can be spiritual, but I think like organized religion is such an ugly thing, and has done such harm just throughout the world for ages and ages and ages, and it still is. I think the only threat to a true spiritual life for anybody is organized religion. So I thought that was a really, really good line. I don't know.
Yeah, I can groove with that. Sure.
Okay. You have like nothing to say here. This movie is just, we're done with the movie, everybody. So Maud first meets Carol when Carol comes over late one night to visit Amanda, and Carol is Amanda's very special regular guest. And it's heavily implied that Carol is a call girl or an escort because she's being paid to be in the company of Amanda. She's being paid by Amanda.
Did you say it's heavily implied? It's
We
explicit.
don't
It
see
is.
them
That's what it
fucking.
is.
We don't see them fucking. So I'm not gonna call her a prostitute.
But
Maud,
I think Carol
yeah.
likes Amanda. I do think Carol, I think it's
Mhm.
like one of those things where it's like she was an escort, but like also she cares about Amanda.
Well, she even says it at one point. She says, "I do care about Amanda," and
Yeah.
I think Carol does care about Amanda to the extent that she can. Carol, I really like how they portray Carol here too. Is she's not just this woman there to get the money and laugh and like wear all
Right.
these jewels and run through the house. Like there's some nuance there. She's very sweet to Amanda. She's there when Amanda needs her. I mean, albeit she pays her, but like
But
Maud is very jealous of this relationship that Amanda and Carol has. Maud is like peering through
I
cracked
was very
doors.
worried Amanda was going to get killed or Carol was going to get killed.
I was worried that Carol was going to get killed and that Joy was going to get killed. There's two people I was thinking something was going to happen with.
I thought Maud was going to murder both of them.
While in town one evening, Maud is recognized by a former friend that I just mentioned, Joy, and Joy calls Maud Katie. So Maud's real name is Katie, and has for some reason, renamed herself to Maud. And Joy mentions something that happened in Maud's past job, and I guess that is where we flashed to in the beginning of the movie. Is that and it's very vague what she says. She's like, "Do they, you have a new job? They're still letting you nurse. Do they know what happened?" And Maud's like, "Yes, they know what happened." And so
And
we know
she does
something is
say
there.
later like, it wasn't your fault what happened,
Yeah.
which led me to believe that it was Maud's fault.
And I don't think so. So apparently this story, Maud's little traumatic flashback is based on something real that if I'm wrong, somebody correct me, but that Rose Glass knew a nurse who had some PTSD from a similar situation about like somebody's like cracking somebody's chest or something like that on accident, and then the patient died. Anyway, but a little bit later,
That
Maud
tracks.
asks Carol to stop coming around. She says that Carol is a distraction for Amanda's spiritual journey and Amanda's final days, but Amanda needs to be focused on a specific thing, and Carol is just a distraction for that.
So
Yeah.
I have something to say about this. In my notes, at like the way earlier on, I say, is Amanda gay? Is Maud going to be some crazy anti-gay person? The movie goes to great lengths to not say she's anti-gay, which I found a little tiresome. That like bothered me. I was like, we need to shit or get off the pot because we're circling the drain of like, ooh, she's crazy, religious. She's like kind of a bigot. Amanda says it, but Maud is never like disrespectful of like the fact that Amanda's a lesbian. I mean, even though she murders her, she's
Yeah.
not like in her head, she's not saying like this is a sin. Like you said, when she talks to Carol, she's like, you're distracting her, not like, oh, you're going down on her and that's sinful because, two women shouldn't lie together. And I kind of felt like Maud would have felt that way. Maud would have said, this is sinful. And then maybe when she's like out at the bar, she like hooks up with a girl. And then like we see that there's like, that's kind of like, I think a thing I was missing here is that it was very sapphic. It was very like Amanda's gay, Maud is jealous, Maud is sending her lover away, but Maud isn't saying one way or the other that there's anything wrong with being gay. Um, I don't know. I felt like that was a thing that like kind of bothered me. It's like we know that she hates it, but we also recognize that she's jealous. So I needed them to like. It felt like in her head. Granted, I would totally clock Maud as the like polite religious person who wouldn't say it out loud, but like in her head when she's doing those voiceovers, I would have. I think we needed like I don't know. I felt like we needed something where she confirms why she doesn't like Carol and she's a distraction. Um, I don't know. What did you think about that though?
I do agree with you there. I think there should have been a little bit more. It should have been a little bit more in your face instead of just like kind of brushing around it, skirting around it a little bit because I think Maud just exudes repression. She's got sexual repression. She's got likely like she's likely repressing any sort of queer identity that she does have, and I do feel like in her head, at least in her monologue, she would have said something about like their scissoring and all that is
Right.
wrong. They shouldn't be doing it. Like something because she even like we. It is important to remember that also, and I don't think we've mentioned it, is that Maud is a recent. she has recently converted to this religion. She has recently, like, let God into her life. And so she still kind of snaps sometimes. Like when she's telling Carol to stop coming around, and Carol's really, just saying it's none of your fucking business. Maud even like lashes out a little bit, and she's like, "Yeah, I don't give a fuck if you're like, you know, choking on a cock or something like that." Like she has these moments where she just like snaps, and I feel like if she can do that, she can also in her head probably be a little bit more graphic and I feel like she would be pretty violent in her head.
Yeah.
So,
I mean,
um,
it's all an act, right? All of it is like her putting it on. So I guess maybe she wouldn't in her head, but if she's willing to say it out loud, then I feel like she would be saying it in her head. Like maybe she'd say, maybe she wouldn't like curse, but she would say in like the polite terms why it's wrong, the like, you know, homosexual sex that they're having.
and so Carol agrees to stop seeing Amanda, but like this is not real.
Right.
Amanda, it even seems like she calls Amanda to like break things off, and Amanda's like in a sour mood for a little bit. But Carol eventually shows back up because Amanda's having a big birthday party. I fucking love this party, by the way. I would have liked to have seen just an hour of them just sitting around and soaking up each other's awesomeness and like just being those artsy types, because that's what they all are. It's just there's a bunch of fags in the room probably.
I have a Zachary rewrite here.
Okay.
After seeing the movie, I thought about this. I think the party should have been the climax of the movie. I would have loved if she got sick at the party, Maud brings her upstairs, and like everyone at the party like kind of sees it happen. And that's like I felt like I wanted the climax to happen completely in the house. And I would have liked it if she lit herself on fire in front of the party guests instead of just like people on the beach. Like I thought that would have, and like maybe the house burns down, or maybe they like, pat her down and she's dead, but like they get her, whatever. But I would have liked the imagery is cool on the beach, it is. But I would have liked, since we were so much in that house, I would have liked if there was some kind of party happening and like Maud had to bring her upstairs because she's, the way we saw before that like she can't hold her liquor anymore and she vomits easily because she's, at the end of her life. I mean, granted, in my version, Amanda would have killed Maud, but if we had to have the ending the way it was, I would have just still preferred it placed in the house. Because I think that would have, if like the guests see that Maud is dead, or the guests see that Amanda is dead, and then Maud lights herself on fire in front of them, I think that would have been kind of cool.
I do like that. But then we have a bunch of stuff after the party
Right.
that now I'm thinking in my head, and I don't have time to think about this, so I need to like put it off to the side. That like how would that stuff play out before the climax? It's a
Because
good
we
one
could
to
have had
think
everything
about.
else. We could
Yeah.
have had, let's say, the firing happened because Carol comes back. Maud slaps her, Amanda, in front of Carol. Amanda fires her. We get all of that. But then Amanda's like, hey, do you want to come to my birthday party, Maud? Because I appreciated, the time we spent together. And then Amanda goes back to her, or I'm getting all the names mixed up. God. And then Maud goes back to Amanda's house at the end, and that's where all of that happens because it's her party.
And maybe Amanda sees the reason Amanda invites her back is because clearly Amanda has thought about Maud even after
Yeah,
they've ended their time together. Maybe Amanda sees Maud out somewhere in town and see because we also understand that like Amanda feels bad that Maud is such a lovely girl,
right.
and sees some. Okay, we don't have time for this. Don't get me on. Don't get me on this. This is my bullshit. At this party though, like Amanda, it was so cringy, Ian, and I felt awful for Maud. I just did. I just felt really fucking bad. Until the slap. But so Amanda is telling everybody, Maud doesn't like Carol. She tried to drive Carol away. Or Maud is my savior, you see, and like clearly speaking to Maud, knowing Maud is standing right there, and everybody's listening to this, and she's just like kind of. It felt like a little bit of ridicule there, but like also Maud is doing shitty things and like stay out of Amanda's life. You're a paid employee.
Zachary, I don't think you would feel bad for me if I was like, Alistair, you can't talk to Zach anymore. And then like I that's how I viewed it. I was like, well, I don't feel bad for her. She deserves this. But I understand. But like, because I kept thinking like, oh, like if someone was like like technically Maud's an employee, like,
Yeah.
and granted, I'm sure that line gets blurred often, especially with shit like that. But Maud is her fucking employee. she shouldn't be sending away her girlfriend. And if someone sent away, like tried to send away the person I was like seeing, I I might also belittle them in front of a crowd if I'm drunk.
But then what is the point of keeping Maud around for that long, knowing that this has happened? Why not fire her earlier? Why not save her a little bit of the ridicule? What is the point of the ridicule? I think that is where I sit on like just any. I never understand ridiculing somebody. I don't. I think one of the lowest things you can do is embarrass somebody. It doesn't matter what they've done. I think that is one of the lowest things you can do, and I'll die on that hill. It's okay. We can disagree.
I mean, yeah,
Just
you're
like
wrong,
fire her
but
earlier though.
that I think Amanda did enjoy Maud's company, but I think Amanda knows that Maud is like very unhinged. Um, because we also grazed over prior to this, we had the scene of Amanda and her holding hands and like kind of orgasming together. Because my notes for that say, maybe I am religious if this is what happens when you're religious. And I think that Amanda kind of just enjoyed her bullshit. Like Amanda, in as as someone stuck in the suburbs with no queer companion or attention, I could understand like, well, this person kind of hates gay people, but they seem closeted and they are nice to me, so sure. And I think Amanda just liked the company and the attention, which at the end of her life, when she's dying, she's allowed to like attention, you know?
I do think that she would have had the slap not happened. I think Maud probably would still be in that job position
Yeah.
as well. But Maud does hit. I have it in my note that Maud hits Carol, but that is wrong. Maud hits Amanda at some point during this exchange, and but like, see, also right before that is like Amanda has like all of her friends go and like dress Maud up in like this like saint's costume and puts like a headdress over her, and like that's just fucked. It's just fucked. Just
Yeah.
let her go, make her leave. But like, so Maud does hit Amanda, and then like don't feel bad for her at that point. She hits Amanda, and Amanda fire. I mean, obviously she gets fired, but she's not charged with assault, which is
Which again, I
some more
think is
about
because Amanda
Amanda.
liked her.
Agreed. But Maud now begins to spiral. She thinks that God's kind of rejected her. She's having these like awful stomach pains and these like bodily pains, and it's a clear sign of like some sort of like medical illness. Not even just mental, but like something's wrong with her body here, and she's having like seizures later on. But she believes this is God's punishment onto her, or that God
Right.
has now rejected her.
Right. I took it as like I took it as like she's so like mentally there's like something wrong and that can cause you to like feel sick or like feel and I that's what I took it as. It was all because of the stress of her like mental illness of whatever was going on, probably her trauma from that person who died accidentally. Um that like that makes her feel
She
ill.
doesn't even have anybody in her life to like help her. She needs fucking help. She gets dressed up. Well, she believes God's rejected her. So this part I was a little bit confused on, because I get like believing you were maybe rejected, but then maybe trying harder to gain God's approval. But instead, she like gets dressed up in this outfit that's supposed to be like slutty, I guess, but it barely any skin showing,
Right.
by the way. And she goes out to a bar and she's like alone, and she calls Joy from earlier, but Joy doesn't come out, to meet her, and she's like drinking and gives a random guy a hand job, and she tries. Oh God, this was so fucking awkward. Her trying to join that conversation right next to her.
Ugh.
Ugh, ugh. Could have thrown up from secondhand embarrassment there.
Well, so this is where the movie, when I was like, what are we doing here? That's like absolutely where I like felt the movie started to drag. Like it didn't really drag, but that's where it started to be like, this might drag because I don't know what we're doing. Um, yeah, I don't, and like, I don't think that actress was that good in those scenes. Um, Zachary, you have a counterpoint?
Everybody's entitled to an opinion, I guess. Some people are going to hell. I think I so here's my issue with it. Kind of is like it felt like this was the point in the like every movie that the main character has like a spiral moment or a spiral, like a couple scenes where we see them spiraling. But she was already spiraling the whole movie, so it's
Right.
like
Yeah, that I think like this like I don't think there should have. That's why another reason why I felt like the party should have happened at the end of the movie, because I don't think the space, putting like that space between her and Amanda, worked too well for the movie.
You gotta quit saying it, because now I'm in my head like, oh, the party has to be at the end. Somebody needs to re-edit this.
Oh
Where's the
wait,
where's the
Zachary,
rose glass cut?
does that mean you think I'm right?
He loves it when I say it, and I'll do it right now, everybody. Ian Carlos
It's
Crawford,
my
you are
favorite thing you
right.
say.
You are right.
I'm gonna like have confetti fall for like add that in After Effects.
Yeah, I just have so much like secondhand embarrassment during this scene where she's out at this bar though, because she's like, we get hints that she had this former life where she probably
Right.
went out like a normal person and like would drink and stuff. But then I think, well, how much of a normal life was it? Like, was she still alone? Because I could have seen her still being sort of a loner, trying to connect to something, and maybe that's why she kind of found real. I mean, we know why she finds religion, but also why like she would jump on religion so easily because like maybe she was already alone.
Right. Well, I mean, that's the impression I get because I mean, from Joy encountering her, it seems like she was always kind of alone, and the guy that she goes home with, that she has sex with, and she sees herself accidentally pressed through his chest, like that's her trauma coming back. Um, I get the impression that she, and I mean, no judgment, but like when I would go out to the bars with my friends, there was always like people that were regulars at those bars that would be there by themselves, right? Like that's like a thing. Um, and that maybe they would like come sit with me and my friends and whatever. So I get the impression that she was at least more social, but probably still very awkward. Um, because that guy even says, "Oh, you hooked up with my friend, blah blah blah."
Yeah.
You know,
You want to see a movie for secondhand embarrassment? Have you ever seen Eighth Grade? It's another A24 movie. Oh,
can't
oh,
remember
that'll
that.
make you die, Ian. You'll just die. It's like about this like 12-year-old girl who just it's the most awkward 12-year-old girl. But it's kind of like this because she like would be the type of person to like sit at a table next to a group of people and like try to insert herself in there. But she does. She ends up going home with this guy. Back on track, by the way. She ends up not eighth grade. The eighth grader does not go home with a guy. Maud ends up going home with this guy. And they're having sex, and then she has this flashback of, and like she's riding him, and so she has her hands on his chest, and she has this flashback of the beginning where and she kind of like breaks, she like hallucinates that she like breaks his chest, and she jumps off of him, and she's kind of like startled herself, and she's like done now, not wanting to have sex. So I am not a fan of rape scenes, and I know you're not either. Um, I appreciated the way they did this one because usually in movies, right, it's like the rape scene is always pretty violent. It's they're showing this knife to the throat or something like that. And here this happens a lot with people, and for some reason it's still not like there's still some people out there who will not consider this rape. That she decides she's done. He still tries to go for it. She says no, and that should be it. That should be all. But like he still goes for it, and just because she's not fighting back and stuff, it's still rape. This is still she gets raped. And I really appreciated how they did that because I
Yes,
mean it's a super realistic way to go about it, and I don't see that in film all that much.
that's where, because I always say the rape scenes are almost always added by men, and I never like them, and it's a sign of a dude writing women in horror. I think this was a rape scene clearly written by a woman because it was like, it showed because the beat before that, he's being a little nice to her, right? So you think like, oh, this guy like isn't shitty because when she sees herself push her, he's like, oh, it's okay, like,
Yeah,
you okay? And then she like lays down, and you think he's gonna comfort her. Like that's what I thought. I was like, oh, he's gonna like lay with her or whatever and like try to cuddle her. But no, he like goes back to wanting to have sex, and she says no. And for me, the fact that it was like very muted and very, it was like, okay, a woman wrote this because
yeah,
they're like handling it with care and not making it like bombastic and like there's no screaming, there's no, it's just like she says no a couple times and he's still going for it, and she just kind of lays there, and like he finishes and whatever. And for me, that felt like, okay, this is realistic. And it didn't, like, I don't love a rape scene. I still wish we didn't get it, but it felt at least like written more realistic.
yeah. It did feel more realistic because this is a guy that who probably wouldn't have like if she'd started screaming or something, he probably wouldn't have done that. But like And he, just because he wasn't like, I mean, I still think he was aggressive, but like he wasn't like holding her
Right,
down
right, right.
and like stuff like that. He still went for it even after she said no. He's like, okay, just stop, wait, and he kept going for it. And even though it's a little, like you said, a little bit more muted, a little bit more calm, he is still a rapist.
Yeah.
People, that still makes you a rapist. She said no, she was done, and just because she laid there and let it happen, she got raped. He was a rapist. Um,
Right. And he's the
yeah.
type of guy that would say, like, oh, I don't like rapists, probably.
And he would say that he didn't rape her, and all of his friends would say that he didn't rape her. And that would be the story in court, and he would get off for it. Right. Okay. Um, Afterwards, he mentions knowing her, like while she's getting dressed and about to leave. Like he mentions that he knew her and that she like probably slept with, or that she slept with one of his buddies, and that, and it kind of alludes to her, her past, and that she like slept around a little bit, and maybe she went out to drink, and maybe she did normal things. This kind of just freaks her out and she leaves. And then at home, she's just like having this spiraling mess. She's throwing up everywhere. There's fireworks going on outside. She's having seizures and just appears to levitate. And it's just like, don't know that we needed it.
Yeah. Yes. I, in my notes, in all caps, it says, where the fuck is this going? Um, and I just kind of felt like, yeah, yeah, I agree. Yes.
Because, like we said, the movie itself is a spiral. We don't like with the rape
Like, this has
scene. They
been her,
did,
girl. Like, this, you've been
yeah.
doing this.
Like with the rape scene, like we said, that the muted worked for it, but like then they kind of do another trope where, the spiral scene is a little bit more bombastic and loud and all that, like you said. So, um, I mean, they still kind of fell into a couple tropes here, but
But I guess the point could be made that it's like because she was raped, that's why it was like this spiral was like grander than most.
maybe
And like
I don't know that.
this kind of does like set her on the path towards the end.
Yes, um, and she believes that she's just damned and that she like this was her going against God, and she's like pleading like that she wouldn't do that again, and she goes to punish herself. So like this, we brought this up in the beginning, she's like mutilating herself, and we've seen signs of that already. She's got cuts on her body and stuff like that. And so there's a moment in the trailer, and this is the moment from the trailers, that she puts like nails in her shoes. And she like walks, like puts her feet in the shoes, and she just walks like through town, and is just punishing herself for her sins. And it's I don't know, man.
Yeah, this is when I kept like, I don't know if you noticed, I kept like moving my remote to see like how much time is left in this movie.
I'd say I never did that. I thought I went pretty fast, but I also like didn't know if we needed. I don't know if we needed, like, it felt like a movie that was kind of going for subtlety anyway. If we would have just stayed on that path, I think I would have liked it a little bit
Yeah.
more than them being like, "Well, it's a little too slow. Let's throw some extra stuff in there."
Yeah,
But I
no,
mean, I don't know.
you are right, Zachary, because I agree
Thank
with you.
you. Appreciate it. Um,
Yeah, I that's again why I felt like it would have, even all of this happening could have been, I might have been more okay with it if she was still with Amanda. Like if this happened, Amanda's asleep downstairs and she's having this spiral upstairs. Like maybe I would have been more okay with it getting more dramatic and whatever if it was like she's still, but the fact that she was separated from Amanda, I was like, what are we doing? You know?
I guess this just is painting her fall from grace, or her perceived fall from God's graces in this, because God gave her this assignment. She failed at this assignment, and now she's spiraling. Maybe that's in her mind. God basically tells her she's always known what to do, and so she's like, "Yes, I know what to do." And she has this bit of vanity. She's like grabs her bed sheets and like puts it around her and dresses herself up as the saint with the rosary. She's posing in the mirror and like believing in her higher calling as like this God sent woman. God would never send a woman. Just kidding, my fellow Christians. Joy comes over one day, and by this point, like, Maud is completely checked out, and so Joy comes over and she apologizes for not being there for Maud, and on my second watch, because on the first one, I guess I had the subtitles on, so I heard everything that she said, but I guess she says it, and her audio is almost muted. It's like so low that you could barely hear any of it because we're
Because Maud's
so
not
in
paying
Maud's
attention.
head. She's not listening.
Well, she says like like, it wasn't your fault. I'm really sorry, I'm really sorry we never connected, and I'm sorry I didn't come out the other night. Um, and like, I hope you're doing better and all this stuff. And Maud's just like, not. And I feel like Joy is trying to be nice, but she's like, she's not really listening to me. And this apartment looks like where someone gets murdered. In my notes, I even say Joy is there and talking, but she's probably gonna get murdered.
Everybody's gonna get fucking murdered in this movie. But and like Joy's just another. I feel like this movie is full of good people. You know, I feel like Joy's also just a good person. Joy could have completely forgotten about Maud and just never shown up for anything, but she does. She goes out of her way to do this. And Joy is a smoker. I think there's some sort of like symbolism with the smoking that we're supposed to get because everybody fucking smokes in this movie. And we see like just about everybody light up a cigarette. And then when people aren't even lighting up cigarettes and stuff, you hear the sound of cigarettes being lit up constantly throughout this movie. So I wish I fucking knew. Like, I should have done a little bit of research. I don't know. But there's something there. But Maud sees this like cloud formation in the sky and believes it's God. She like blesses Joy, and Joy is off on her way. And we don't see Joy anymore in the movie. She lived, Ian. She lived.
What are you eating, Zachary?
Oh, jelly beans. Sorry, that is not very godly. That night, Maud walks across town. She like dresses up again, dressed as a saint, and
Like
she walks
Jesus.
across town, across Coney Island, and climbs the hill to Mana's mansion. And she prays, like she like hides off to the side. She prays and she waits for the nurse to leave, and the nurse leaves, and Maud goes into the house and into Amanda's room and finds Amanda very sick in bed, clearly like, yeah, you make sense from earlier. Yeah, Amanda is close to the end. And so Maud is there to, I guess, help her go, to save her soul right before she goes. And Amanda is not even frightened to see Maud. You know, she appears to just be very remorseful for how she treated Maud. It's just that final moment of like, she's just thinking about everything she's ever done in her life. You know, God, I fucking love Amanda. I love Amanda in this movie. Just love her. Just love her. Maud tries to bless Amanda with holy water, but Amanda rejects it and tells Maud to like snap out of it. You know, she admits that she never felt the presence of God, and this causes Maud to have like a little bit of a breakdown. And then we get the horror movie scene here. Here's the horror movie now.
We get, and it did like make me jump a little because then like I forget where the turn is, but like Maud turns around and suddenly Amanda's like, "Ugh!" and like speaking in demon voice and has like a little bit of demon face, nothing too wild, but just like a tinge of demon face. I think if I remember correctly, didn't her jaw like extend just like a little bit more?
That's what I think. I think in my mind that
Yeah.
happened.
She like kind of like uses her demon power to throw Maud into the dresser. Maud picks up the scissors, runs at her. Amanda's making demon noises, but not really doing much, and she stabs her to death. One assumes, well, definitely that it was all made up in Maud's head, and Amanda was now stabbed to death like minutes before she was actually going to die.
Yeah, and on my first watch, I wasn't even sure if the whole Amanda scene had actually happened or if it was just in Maud's mind. But then on my second watch, I saw the part where she's washing the blood off of herself. So she fucking kills Amanda. She just like kills Amanda, leaves, and she's like has this like elated feeling, like this feeling of God rushing over her that she has done her duty. She has stuck strong to her faith, and God is now going to make her this saint. And so she goes home, washes the blood off of her, and then the very next day, she puts her saint clothes back on. So I guess she has a couple of different sheets that she puts on.
She loves her her
She
Jesus
does.
drag.
Goodness, you know, it's comfortable. And she walks onto the beach, and she's carrying like acetone, and I love that all the people on the beach know exactly what she's gonna do. There's no idiots on the beach like, oh my gosh, what is that girl doing over there? They're all like, stop her, stop
Well,
her,
they're
and
not
it's like
American,
this.
so
Yeah, it's like this moment. Oh, I guess yeah. What the hell is that girl going to do over there? And she like pours acetone all over herself and lights herself on fire. But in her mind, because she stands under this, like she's hallucinating throughout the whole movie. So she hallucinates in the sky that there's this portal to heaven. This is
which
what
is
the
the thing
portal
she
to
saw in
heaven
her
looks
beer.
like. Yes, this is the portal to heaven, and like all of this religious like artwork and stuff like that. And she goes and stands under it, pours acetone over herself, and lights herself on fire. And in her mind, she has like angel wings, like they're the wings that were from William Blake's like artwork, and she's like glowing, and all the fire is like glorious looking, and it's just she is just there, and all the people around her on the beach now realize that she's a saint, and they bow down to her, and she's right all along, just like she told Joy earlier that she everybody will see soon. And in her mind, that happens. But then we get these last like 3, 4, 5 frames, like almost not even a whole second of Maud just burning to a charred crisp, and it's just violent. And then we end. Don't know how I felt about that though. Yeah, I don't know.
See, so I know that I'm glad that I'm not just the negative
Yeah,
one. I'm glad you, but I could tell that even you were like a little bit like towards the end. Because I feel like this very easily could have been a movie that we both really loved. Um, but yeah, I don't know it because it was like this is what we were expecting to happen. Her kill Amanda. It was like, oh, now she killed Amanda. Oh, okay. Like
yeah,
none of it felt that shocking. Like the only part that was shocking was when Amanda talked in the demon voice. So I was like, oh shit! But then it quickly realized, oh, this is in her mind. Um, that's the only part that was shocking to me. The rest of it didn't feel like. I think the movie thought it was more shocking than it was.
and I just
Like
and
her lighting herself on fire, I felt like, all right.
it just felt like, I don't want to say unfocused, because I think they did a good job with what they did and what was put on there. And Rose Glass did a phenomenal job with this movie. Like I think she did a really great job. Give her more work, plenty of more work.
Yeah.
But I didn't get the point, and maybe I would just have to watch it again. Maybe I need to listen to a couple videos about it or something like that. But I didn't get the whole point here. I understand that it is likely about this commentary about like mental illness and religion. I get that, the relation between the two, possible relation between the two. I get that whole subtext. I mean, that's not even subtext, but like I get that that's just there. But it felt like there was maybe a point that I don't know could have been there that wasn't. I don't fucking know, man. I don't know. That's the thing, is like I'm very very confused on how I feel about this movie.
Well, your default is I feel like especially when it's something that like is like, ooh, do I or do I not? Your default is to be like, no, I liked it and defend it. So the fact that you're even on the fence makes me feel a little bit more validated. Just like again, I didn't hate it. I just felt like, all right, that could have been better.
Yeah.
But I know a lot of people really loved this movie.
Hmm.
Um, I would be curious to like talk to someone who did like genuine, like love it way more than either of us. To see like what they loved and what they didn't and whatever. But I just think there wasn't enough forward more momentum. Like it felt once she left Amanda's house, it felt very all right, what are we doing?
Yeah. I would love to have a conversation with Rose Glass. I think I'd love to have a conversation with her about it, because I have a lot of questions. Because it is a movie that definitely resonated with me. I definitely liked it, really liked it. I even loved it, but I didn't like think it was the most amazing thing since Hereditary. But it did resonate with me quite a bit, because like I come from the world of Catholicism. Like this is like an extreme version of that. But there are people who get this in their head just like her, and that sort of I remember being there in a headspace like that, where every single thing you did, you questioned what was God thinking about it, and if that was okay, and if that was, if this is wrong to do, or if this is wrong to do, or like you have to go about doing something like this, or like it is like a maddening headspace to be in. You're never right, you're never doing the right thing, your head is constantly spinning, and there's never like and it's part of some organized religion that is always telling you that no, that's not the right way to do it, this is the right way to do that. And you have like all of these different sects like Christianity, or like and then you have like Judaism, and everybody's telling you this is the way to worship God, and it just will make you fucking crazy, man. Like organized religion is the devil, man.
Is that great? Did you ever go to Catholic school?
Yes. No, not like that. Not like, no. I took the like Sunday schools and stuff like that. I never
All
went to
right,
Catholic
asshole. Well,
school.
I went to Catholic
Yes,
school.
I know you did.
So I also grew up around it.
Yeah.
I think I just always thought it was caca.
Hmm.
Because I went to Sunday school, I went to Catholic school, I went to a Catholic high school for 2 years. I got so much detention that my mom took me out of the school because I hated it so much.
Hmm.
Um, and I like wasn't a bad kid. I just would always mouth off. Then a nun kicked me out of religion class before, um, because she was like, abortion is always evil, and I was like, what about rape? And she was like, you make a good thing out of a bad thing, and I was like, that's stupid. And she was like, get out.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know. I grew up around it too, so I get it, and I do often find it creepy in movies. But she was so far that I felt
Hmm.
like it didn't creep me out as much as like she creeped me out. If that makes sense, like
Yeah.
the character creeped me out, not the like religious aspect, because she was there was never a moment when it was like, oh, she's just like kind of like this like nice younger religious girl who's maybe a little bit lost. It was always like, ooh, she's gonna do a murder. She's like unhinged. Um,
Yeah. I think it just, I don't know. I don't know. I think I definitely want to do a rewatch at some point. Not anytime soon,
you
but I
watched it
just want
twice
to
this
do
weekend.
like, I know, but I like it. I do like it. And it's one that made me think a little bit. So, um, it's just one of those examples because it is very extreme. It's one of those examples of like how far down a road can you go. I love movies that kind of explore how far down a road you can go based on any sort of idea. You can take something to the I'm eating jelly beans right now. I could take eating jelly beans down a way too far down the road, to an extreme. And I think a lot of religious people do that.
And
Geez, I mean, you drive through Alabama, and there's houses that have like at least 1,000 signs out front about like God, and it's insanely. It's just scary to drive by those houses. You think about being in that house with those people and what type of headspace those people are in, and it's terrifying. And that's what I saw here in this movie.
I mean, I always remember when it comes to that, I think of so me and my friends, one of my friends, his parents used to own a very nice beach house in Myrtle Beach. And we would drive from New Jersey to Myrtle Beach, which I not even gonna try to pretend I remember how many hours that is because I don't know what geography, because I have a smooth brain. But when we would drive through those more southern states, there would be way more churches and Jesus billboards than like anything else. And
Hmm.
I can remember being like, I don't feel safe. Um, and like, so I get what you're saying. Like for me, anytime we did that drive, I would always be creeped out because it would be like, and everything looks old. It's like not even like you're like a fancy church or fancy bill. It looks like it's from like the 60s. So then I'm like even more like, ooh, I'm gonna be killed here. Um, so yeah, no, I do understand what you're saying. Um, I think it was that it was more all in her head. We never encountered. There wasn't another religious person in the movie. It was like just her.
Hmm.
So I think maybe that's why the religious factor didn't quite get there for me.
Yeah.
But that doesn't mean, like, again, it doesn't mean I hated it. It just, it was more about her being creepy than the religion for me.
Well, thank you guys so much for watching. Where can everybody find my bloody Judy?
You can find us in Slayerfest 98's podcast stream, which you can find on Apple Podcast, Spotify, and other corners of the internet. You can find us on social media at SlayerFestX98. And where can they watch us on YouTube, Zachary?
Well, if you've made it to the end of this episode and you're watching, you know exactly where you can find us on YouTube. You can find us on YouTube at ACB Bonus Features. Yeah, and that's that. Okay, this is Saint Maud. I don't remember. My schedule's all messed up in my head. Been thinking about God too much during this episode, so I do not know what we have coming up next. But stay
High
tuned. We'll
tension.
have something. I think High Tension's before this. It'll be out before this one.
Oh, I don't know. I never know what your schedule.
I don't fucking know, but we have lots in store for you. We're gonna wear showgirl outfits in one episode. We're gonna dress like
Ooh,
roller derby women.
speaking of which, you
Okay.
can become a patron of Slayerfest 98's Patreon, where you can get My Bloody Judy bonus
Yes.
episodes. And what are they called, Zachary?
My Nudie Judy. We're probably going to have other stuff connected to My Bloody Judy too. We just haven't worked that out yet. But like, there's going to be tons over there. Like, tons of extra Slayerfest 98 stuff over on the Slayerfest 98 Patreon, including episodes of My Nudie Judy. My Nudie Judy is going to be, here, let's car salesman here. It is going to be raunchy. It is gonna be NC-17 X-rated. X-rated it's gonna be. We're gonna be talking about dicks and balls and cock and a hole. All of it together in every episode. So, go subscribe.
I'll suck a dick live on video.
It's not gonna be mine.
No. How can I
But we'll have a raffle to see who can suck my penis. Lester's gonna be so mad at me. Make sure you go subscribe to the Slayerfest 98 Patreon, everybody. We'll have a link down below for that as well. But thank you guys so much for watching, and we hope you have a great rest of your week.
Bye.
Bye.